All right, welcome back to the Elias Macco Show. Quebec's Liberal Party reunited over the weekend. The party celebrated the 10th anniversary of Philippe Couillard's big election win and spent much of the weekend focusing on their credibility as public finance managers. Interim leader Marc Tanguay says that their credibility on the issue is through the roof. Taking aim at François Legault's $11 billion deficit, the Liberals promised balanced budgets, and I would say they also promised a miracle. Tough decisions, sacrifices, but no cuts. Let's find out more. André Pratte is president of the Liberal Revival Committee, and he's on the line. Mr. Pratte, welcome back to the program.
Good morning.
First things first, let's talk about the messaging from this weekend, right? Because it was so interesting. You reunited the big stars from Liberal election victories in the past and the previous Liberal premiers, and you had all the big names there. Jean Charest was there, Philippe Couillard. Having said that, I don't know if Quebecers have fond memories or not of those years, right? You look at the polls, you wonder why. So let's talk about the messaging here. What was the message the party was trying to tell Quebec over the weekend?
Well, let's start first with what really went on during this weekend. We spent 2 days discussing proposals to increase the wealth of the Quebec economy and therefore increase the revenues of Quebecers, to try to address some of the problems that the Quebec economy faces. Public finances is one such topic, but many other topics were discussed. I would say that really the messaging was really the result of how reporters saw what was happening, and they decided to focus on so-called austerity in public finances. But that's not. We did discuss that, but for a very brief period, and the rest of it was mostly about economic development.
So how do you stay on the right line between focusing on history of running the province's finances in, a lot of people would say, in a proper way, versus the other side of that, austerity and cuts, right? Because people are afraid of that. And this is why I know you take issue with some of the media coverage, but when I see André Fortin, Liberal MNA, saying, hey, there's going to be tough decisions, they necessarily involve sacrifices. And then I hear from a contender for the leadership, Frédéric Beauchemin, saying there will be no cuts. Some of those things don't coincide together, right? So I think it's fair to ask certain questions on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, the Quebec government is now in the deficit position for $11 billion. That's the largest deficit ever. I think we have to be frank with Quebecers, and they know that in their own family, they could not afford a situation where they would be in increasing deficit every year. So you need to take those decisions. What decisions exactly? What we voted on during the weekend was to, when we are elected, to have a plan to come back to a zero deficit, but while preserving the mission, the essential services provided by the government of Quebec, so including healthcare and education. So that's our position. Our plan is to come back to a balanced budget, but doing so in a way that does not ravage essential services provided by the government.
I think we'd get different answers depending on what demographic you're speaking to in Quebec, allophones, anglophones, or francophones. But do you think that Quebecers long for that period? I think it was like an 18-year window where the Liberals in this province, or a 15-year window where the Liberals were government for pretty much all of it, except for a brief window. Do you think Quebecers long for the Jean Charest, Philippe Couillard days?
Well, I mean, our work right now is focused on the future and not on the past. It was normal, as all political parties do, to celebrate our past, including Mr. Couillard, who did not have a chance to celebrate his accomplishments because of the pandemic. But every party does that. Now, the weekend was focused on the present and the future, and that's what we're focused on. We want to present to Quebecers propositions, ideas for the future, including, very important, economic development. If we want to achieve anything as a province, whether it's culturally or other things, we need to have a prosperous economy. And that's what we're focused on right now.
With André Pratte, president of the Liberal Revival Committee. So, Mr. Pratte, listen, I'll give you this. It's not easy to be in politics in Quebec nowadays. Just look at Quebec Solitaire. They've got turmoil. Look at the poll numbers for the CAQ. Obviously, they're not too happy about those things. So it's difficult. The Liberals obviously facing their issues. Do you feel the messaging this weekend, though, was sexy enough? And for lack of a better term, was it sexy enough? Was it because you don't want to be boring in the minds of Quebecers.
No.
And part of me feels like, we're going to be great fiscal managers. Might be a little bit too boring. Let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, well, obviously we have a communications challenge. And the reason we have that challenge is that we're trying to address the real problems of the Quebec economy. And one of those problems, for instance, is productivity. We have to increase productivity if we want to remain a prosperous nation. And that's not sexy, as you said, but it's important. Every expert, we've consulted many different experts in many different fields, they all said the same thing. If Quebec, which is an aging population, if we want to remain a prosperous nation or province, we need to increase our productivity. So it's not sexy, as you said, but sometimes what's important is not sexy. Our challenge is to find ways to communicate this so that it resonates with Quebecers. Mm-hmm. And I think the way to do this is come with concrete proposals that both address this problem and address the real problems that people are facing, including cost of living, which is another thing that we discussed at length during our convention during the weekend.
What is exciting you right now about the Quebec Liberal Party? As you look between now and that next provincial election, what excites you the most?
Well, we're following a very concrete, rigorous plan to rebuild the party, because that's what's required after both defeats in 2018 and a very difficult defeat in 2022. Our task is to rebuild a political party. That includes financing, organization, and ideas, proposals, values, and so on. So we've done this in a very methodical way, and now we're into the ideas, proposals that we will put forward in 2026. What is exciting, I think, is to see that Liberals are united again. There was a very tough period after the 2022 elections where many people were angry at the party for whatever reason, or people were, just failed to mobilize for the party. Now, especially, we've seen this during the convention last weekend. Liberals are united. They're focused on preparing for the 2026 election. Obviously, choosing the next leader of the party will be very important, will be crucial. So we're focused on that. And I think the fact that we are united now and that Liberals are proud of their political party again, I think that's an achievement that we can be proud of and excited about.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think anyone who's been rumored to be thinking about running for the Liberal leadership was there this weekend, except for Frederic Beauchemin, but he's a current M&A. Would you have expected some people who are thinking about running to have shown up this weekend?
Well, not really, because all of the names that are mentioned in the media as people being interested in leadership, they all have a current job. Uh-huh. and the election of the new leader is next year. It's a year from now. So obviously someone who has to work to earn a living cannot afford to announce now that they will be running and have to quit their current job. I mean, people have a right to earn a living, right? Mm-hmm. So I expect that people will come forward with precise announcements on their intentions somewhere next fall. I think that's more probable, and obviously before that happens, they cannot participate to partisan events.
That will be an exciting time when that does start to happen. Mr. Pratte, I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks. Thanks for inviting me.
André Pratte is president of the Liberal Revival Committee.